What happens when Hollywood royalty collides with late-night television in the most explosive way possible? In just 39 seconds, a single comment would turn a friendly interview into an absolute nightmare, ending with security escorting a furious guest off the set while cameras continued rolling and the audience sat in stunned silence. Seth Meyers had hosted thousands of guests on his late-night show. He had seen it all: awkward moments, uncomfortable silences, even the occasional disagreement. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold on this particular evening. The show began like any other. The audience was buzzing with excitement. Meghan Markle walked onto the stage wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people make in a year. She waved to the crowd with that practiced smile she had perfected over years in the spotlight. Seth stood up from behind his desk, extending his hand for a polite handshake. "Welcome to the show," Seth said warmly, gesturing toward the guest chair. "Thanks so much for being here." Meghan sat down, crossing her legs and adjusting her dress with deliberate precision. "Well, I almost didn't come," she said, and there was something in her tone that made Seth's smile falter just slightly. "Oh, really?" Seth asked, maintaining his professional composure. "What changed your mind?" "I figured someone needs to educate your audience," Meghan replied, looking directly into the camera rather than at Seth. "They could use some culture." The audience laughed nervously, unsure if this was banter or something else entirely. Seth chuckled, trying to keep things light. "Well, we definitely need all the help we can get, so let's talk about your new project." "Actually," Meghan interrupted, holding up one perfectly manicured hand, "I'd rather talk about what's really important. Do you know how hard it is being me?" Seth blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Being me," Meghan repeated, leaning forward. "Every single day I wake up and have to deal with people who simply don't understand what it's like to operate at my level. The pressure, the expectations, the constant scrutiny." "Sure," Seth said carefully, "but I think a lot of people deal with pressure in their own ways." Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Please, you have no idea what real pressure is. You sit behind a desk and read jokes other people write for you. I have to actually live my life in the public eye." The audience had gone quiet. Seth's smile was still there, but it was tight now, professional. "Well, I think we all have our challenges. Speaking of which, I wanted to ask you about the charity work you've been doing." "Charity work?" Meghan said, waving her hand dismissively. "Yes, I do charity work, because I care about people, unlike some talk show hosts who just pretend to care for ratings." Seth sat back in his chair. "I'm not sure what you mean by that." "Oh, come on," Meghan said, her voice rising slightly. "Everyone knows these shows are just about making money. You don't actually care about the issues you talk about. It's all performance." "I can assure you," Seth said, his voice steady but firm, "that I care very much about the topics we discuss on this show, and I think our audience knows that." The audience applauded, supporting their host. Meghan looked around at them with something close to disdain. "Of course they'd clap for you," she said. "They're trained SEALs. You tell them when to laugh, when to clap, when to cheer. It's sad, really." Seth leaned forward. "Okay, I think we need to take a step back here. You're a guest on this show, and I've been nothing but respectful to you. I'd appreciate the same courtesy." "Respectful?" Meghan's eyebrows shot up. "You think asking me basic questions is respectful? You should be honored I'm even here. Do you know how many shows beg me to appear?" "Then maybe you should have gone on one of those shows," Seth replied, and there was an edge to his voice now. Meghan stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me?" "I said," Seth continued, remaining seated and calm, "maybe you should have chosen a different show if you're not happy being here." "I cannot believe this," Meghan said, her voice getting louder. "I come here as a favor, and this is how you treat me?" I've been perfectly polite, Seth said. You're the one who came out here with an attitude. An attitude? Meghan's face was flushed now. I have standards. That's not an attitude. That's self-respect. Something you clearly wouldn't understand. Seth stood up now, his height giving him a commanding presence. All right, I think we're done here. Oh, you're dismissing me? Meghan laughed incredulously. You're dismissing me? Yes, Seth said firmly. I am. This interview is over. You can't do that, Meghan said, but her voice wavered slightly. I absolutely can, Seth replied. This is my show, and I won't have someone come on here and insult me, my staff, and my audience. Meghan pointed a finger at him. Do you know who I am? I do, Seth said calmly. And right now, you're someone who needs to leave. This is outrageous, Meghan sputtered. Wait until people hear about this. Wait until the press hears how you treated me. They can hear whatever you want to tell them, Seth said. But everyone in this room saw what actually happened. You came out here spoiling for a fight, and I'm not going to give you one. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. You're going to regret this. I don't think I will, Seth said. The audience was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Meghan looked around, perhaps expecting support, but found none. Every face looked back at her with either shock or disapproval. Fine, she said. Fine. I didn't want to be on your stupid show anyway. Then why did you come? Seth asked, genuinely curious now. Meghan opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer. Instead, she turned on her heel and started walking toward the stage exit. Wait, she said, stopping and turning back. I'm not done. Yes, you are, Seth said firmly. No, I'm not, Meghan shouted. You don't get to tell me when I'm done. I decide when I'm done. Seth turned to someone off camera. Can we get security, please? Meghan's eyes went wide. Security? You're calling security on me? Yes, Seth said simply. This is absurd, Meghan said, but she was backing toward the exit now. This is completely absurd. You're all witnesses to this abuse. The only person being abusive here is you, Seth said, his voice calm but cutting. You've insulted everyone in this building, and I've asked you politely to leave. Now, I'm telling you. 2 security guards appeared at the edge of the stage. They didn't touch Meghan, but their presence was clear. Don't you dare touch me, Meghan warned them. Ma'am, we need you to exit the studio. One of them said professionally. Meghan looked back at Seth one more time. You've made a huge mistake. I don't think so, Seth replied. Your show is nothing without guests like me, Meghan said. I'm pretty sure we'll survive, Seth said, and there was a hint of a smile on his face now. Meghan's face turned red. You smug little man. You think you're so clever, don't you? I think I'm done with this conversation, Seth said. Gentlemen, please escort her out. The security guards moved closer. Meghan held up her hands. I'm leaving, she said. I'm leaving on my own. I don't need your hired goons to remove me. She started walking toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly on the stage floor, but she couldn't resist turning back one more time. You know what your problem is? She called out to Seth. Seth didn't respond. He just stood there, waiting. You're intimidated by successful women, Meghan continued. That's what this is really about. You can't handle having someone more important than you on your show. That's not even close to true, Seth said. We've had incredibly successful women on this show, and every single one of them was gracious and professional. You're not being asked to leave because you're successful. You're being asked to leave because you're being disrespectful. Disrespectful? Meghan shrieked. I'm disrespectful? You invited me here just to humiliate me. I invited you here to have a conversation, Seth said, his patience clearly wearing thin. You're the one who decided to turn it into whatever this is. Meghan took a step back toward him. The security guards tensed. "This is slander," she said. "I could sue you for this." "For what?" Seth asked. "For asking you to leave my show after you insulted everyone here? Good luck with that." "You'll see," Meghan said. "Everyone will see what kind of person you really are." "They're seeing it right now," Seth said, gesturing to the cameras that were still rolling. "Everything that's happened here has been recorded. So yeah, people will see exactly what happened." Meghan seemed to realize this for the first time. She looked at the cameras, her expression shifting. "Turn those off," she demanded. "No," Seth said simply. "I said turn them off," Meghan repeated, louder this time. "And I said no," Seth replied. "You agreed to be on a television show. Television shows have cameras. You don't get to control that." Meghan looked around wildly, as if searching for allies. Finding none, she pointed at Seth again. "You're going to pay for this," she said. "Is that a threat?" Seth asked. "It's a promise," Meghan shot back. Seth sighed. "Okay, we're really done now. Please remove her from the building." The security guards moved in, not touching Meghan, but creating a clear path toward the exit, and making it obvious she needed to follow it. "Don't touch me," Meghan warned again, even though they hadn't. "I know my rights." "Then exercise your right to leave," Seth said. Meghan stood there for a moment longer, her chest heaving, her face flushed. The audience watched in absolute silence. Finally, she spun around and marched toward the exit, her movements stiff with anger. Just before she reached the door, she turned back one final time. "You haven't heard the last of this," she called out. Seth didn't respond. He just watched as she disappeared through the exit, the security guards following behind her. The door closed with a solid thunk. For a moment, nobody moved. The audience sat frozen, unsure how to react. Seth stood at his desk, looking at the door where Meghan had exited. Then he turned to the audience. "Well," he said, and his voice was remarkably steady. "That was unexpected." The audience erupted. Some people were applauding. Some were gasping. Some were talking to their neighbors. The energy in the room was electric. Seth held up his hands, asking for quiet. Gradually, the noise died down. "I want to apologize to everyone here," Seth said. "That's not how we do things on this show. We treat our guests with respect, and we expect the same in return. When that doesn't happen, well, you all just saw what happens." More applause. Seth waited for it to subside. "I also want to thank our crew and our security team for handling that professionally," he continued. "And I want to thank all of you for being such a great audience, even during that very strange moment." The applause continued. Seth smiled, but it was a tired smile. "We're going to take a quick break," he said. "When we come back, we'll try to salvage what's left of this show. Stick around." The cameras cut, and the applause sign went dark. But the audience kept clapping, showing their support for their host. Backstage, crew members were buzzing with shock and excitement. Nobody could quite believe what had just happened. In all the years the show had been on the air, nothing like this had ever occurred. Seth sat back, down at his desk, running a hand through his hair. One of the producers rushed over. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Seth said. "Yeah, I'm fine. That was just wow. That was something." "Do you want to address it more when we come back?" the producer asked. Seth thought about it. "No," he decided. "Let's just move on. We've got other guests, other segments. Let's do the show we planned." The producer nodded, impressed by his professionalism. In the audience, people were still talking amongst themselves, replaying what they'd witnessed. "Did that really just happen?" one woman asked her friend. "I can't believe it," her friend replied. "I've never seen anything like that." "He was so calm," the first woman said. "I would have lost it." "Right?" her friend agreed. "She was so rude to him, and he just stayed professional the whole time." Similar conversations were happening all around the studio. People were shocked, excited, and already thinking about how they'd tell this story to their friends. Back on stage, Seth was getting ready for the show to resume. He straightened his tie, took a sip of water, and reviewed his notes for the next segment. 30 seconds, someone called out. Seth nodded. He looked out at the audience, making eye contact with a few people, offering reassuring smiles. They smiled back, showing their support. 15 seconds. Seth took a deep breath. He'd been doing this job for years. He'd handled difficult guests before, though never quite like this. But he knew how to recover, how to move forward. 5, 4, 3. The cameras came back on. Seth looked directly into the lens, his expression warm and welcoming. "We're back," he said. "And I promise the rest of the show will be much more enjoyable than that last segment." The audience laughed, the tension breaking. "Our next guest," Seth continued, "is an actual professional who knows how to conduct themselves in public." More laughter. Seth grinned. "Please, welcome to the show." And just like that, the show continued. Professional, polished, exactly what audiences had come to expect from Seth Meyers. The drama was over, handled with grace and dignity. In the green room, the next guest had watched the whole thing on a monitor. They were nervous now, wondering what kind of energy they'd be walking into. But when they took the stage a few minutes later, Seth greeted them with genuine warmth and enthusiasm. The interview went smoothly, filled with laughter and interesting conversation. By the time the show wrapped, the incident with Meghan felt almost surreal. Had it really happened? Yes, the footage proved it had. But Seth had moved past it so seamlessly that it almost felt like a fever dream. As the audience filed out of the studio, they were all talking about what they'd witnessed. Some were already pulling out their phones, ready to text their friends. Others were just shaking their heads in disbelief. One thing was certain. Everyone who had been in that audience would remember this taping for the rest of their lives. They'd been there for something truly unprecedented. A moment of real, unscripted drama on live television. And through it all, Seth Meyers had remained calm, professional, and completely in control of his show. He'd set boundaries, enforced them, and refused to engage with someone who was clearly there to cause problems. The crew packed up the equipment, still buzzing about what had happened. Stories were already being embellished, details added and subtracted. By tomorrow, everyone would have their own version of events. But the cameras had captured everything. The truth was right there, recorded for posterity. A guest who came onto a show with an agenda, a host who refused to play along, and the inevitable collision that resulted. Seth gathered his notes, said goodnight to his team, and headed home. It had been a long day, and an even longer taping, but he'd handled it the only way he knew how, with professionalism and integrity. Behind him, the studio went dark. The audience was gone. The cameras were off. The show was over. But the memory of what happened would live on, talked about and dissected for years to come. The night Meghan Markle got kicked off Seth Meyers' show. The night a host stood his ground and refused to be disrespected on his own stage. And somewhere out there, Meghan was probably still fuming, still convinced she'd been wronged, still planning her next move. But in that studio, on that night, Seth Meyers had won. Not through aggression or cruelty, but through simple, steadfast professionalism. He'd given his guest every chance to have a normal conversation, and when she refused, he'd done what needed to be done. The show would go on. It always did. But this particular episode would be remembered long after all the others faded from memory. A perfect example of how to handle an impossible situation with grace, dignity, and unwavering principles.